The first question, what are the 5-step processes of recognizing revenue? So the first step is to identify the contract with the customer. The second step is to identify the performance obligations in the contract. Third is to determine the transaction price for the contract. Next is to allocate a transaction price to each specific performance obligation. Lastly is to recognizing the revenue when the entity satisfies each performance obligation. Moving on, what is a performance obligation, and when does a company satisfy its performance obligation? So a performance obligation is a promise to deliver a good or provide a service, or a series of distinct goods or services that are substantially the same and that have the same pattern of transfer to the customer. It can be implicit or explicit. And performance obligations are satisfied and revenue can be recognized when a customer obtains control of the asset or benefits from the services provided. Performance obligations are completed and revenue is recognized either at a point in time or over a period of time. It depends on certain facts. And moving on to the third question, what is the transaction price? The transaction price is actually the amount of consideration an entity expects to receive for the transfer of goods or services to the customer. And the last question is, if more than one performance obligation exists, how do we allocate the transaction price? So the answer would be, if there are multiple performance obligations, the transaction price must be allocated to each performance obligation on a relative standalone basis. The best way to do this is to compile each performance obligation standalone price if it were sold separately by the entity. If a standalone selling price is not directly observable, it must be estimated. Combine the standalone selling prices and allocate a transaction price proportionately to each performance obligation based on their respective standalone prices.